Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly control vast empires of wealth, while others work themselves to exhaustion just to stay afloat? What if I told you there's an invisible world operating right beneath the surface of our everyday financial reality? A world where money isn't just currency, but a weapon of influence that few understand how to wield. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. There exists a secret realm that remains hidden from most people's view. It's not found in economics textbooks, it's not taught in business schools, and it's certainly not discussed around polite dinner tables. This is the shadowy domain where money transforms into raw power, the kind that shapes laws, bends rules, and makes people chase after you without even understanding why they're running. Has this ever happened to you? You work harder than everyone around you, save diligently, follow all the financial advice, yet somehow still find yourself trapped in a system that seems designed to keep you exactly where you are. That's not an accident. That's by design. Most people believe the story they've been told, that money is simply about hard work, saving wisely, and maybe retiring comfortably someday. But that narrative is the greatest sleight of hand in human history. The dark truth, in the hands of those who truly understand its nature, money becomes a weapon, a shield, a tool of unimaginable influence. When Niccolo Machiavelli penned his infamous works on power nearly 500 years ago, he wasn't just talking about politics, he was revealing the fundamental laws that govern all forms of influence, including wealth. The principles he uncovered don't care about fairness. They don't care about what we were taught is right. They only care about what works. Stay with me until the end, because today we're diving deep into 7 dark money secrets that apply Machiavellian thinking to how real power and extraordinary profit are built in today's world. These aren't comfortable truths. They aren't the sanitized financial advice you'll hear from conventional experts. But they are real, and they're being used against you every single day by those who understand the game. What you're about to discover might surprise you, might shock you, and will definitely transform how you look at every financial transaction in your life. You'll begin to see the hidden machinery beneath the surface of our economic system, the levers and pulleys that the true financial puppet masters use to direct the flow of wealth. These are the principles that separate those who merely earn from those who truly rule. The difference between those who chase money their entire lives and those who build systems where money chases them. Between being a player in someone else's game and becoming the one who writes the rules. The wealthy, elite have guarded these secrets for centuries, passing them down through private networks, exclusive clubs, and behind closed doors. Not because they're illegal, but because their power depends on the masses never fully understanding how the real game is played. Join our exclusive community of strategic wealth builders by hitting subscribe. This channel is dedicated to revealing the hidden principles that the financial elite don't want you to discover. Now, let's unveil the first of these, Machiavellian secrets, one that forms the foundation of all true financial power. Secret number 1. Control the flow, control the power. Think about water for a moment. Whoever controls the pipes decides who drinks and who goes thirsty. They determine where water flows, how much flows, and who has access. Money works exactly the same way. The people who control how money flows, banks, tech giants, investment firms, hold more power than presidents or prime ministers. Their decisions shape entire economies, and by extension lives. This revelation transforms how we must think about wealth creation. Most of us have been indoctrinated into a mindset of chasing money like thirsty travelers in a desert. We work paycheck to paycheck, always running, always hustling, always feeling one step behind. We've been conditioned to believe this endless chase is the only path forward. But look closely at what the truly powerful are doing behind the scenes. They don't chase after money. They Build the pipes. They create systems where money flows to them automatically, continuously, whether they work or sleep. This fundamental difference separates the merely wealthy from the truly powerful. One group exhausts themselves accumulating, the other engineers a reality where accumulation happens by design. The journey to understanding this hidden truth begins with observing the architecture around us. Look at how credit card companies operate. When you buy something, they make money from interest. Pay late, they charge you more. Even if you pay on time, the store pays them a percentage. They've built a system where money flows to them constantly, like a river they own. This isn't just business, it's an architecture of dependence. The impact of this realization should shake you to your core. Every major fortune in history was built not by chasing dollars, but by creating channels where money naturally flows. Think about landlords collecting rent, software companies with subscription models, or investment firms taking management fees regardless of performance. They all understand this principle intuitively. The decisions you make today will either keep you running in the hamster wheel or begin building your own pipes. Ask yourself, am I spending my limited energy and resources chasing individual dollars, or am I creating systems that channel money to me permanently? This question alone can redirect your entire financial journey. What's fascinating is how this principle operates invisibly all around us. The most brilliant aspect of these money channels is that once built, they often become self-sustaining and even self-reinforcing. Money begets money in a way that labor never can. Time magnifies the gap between those who build systems and those who trade time for money. Now, I want to go even deeper into the psychology that makes this principle so powerful and reveal the second dark money secret that multiplies its effectiveness. But first, I'd love to know your thoughts on this concept. Write in the comments, "I'm building pipes, not chasing water," if you're ready to shift your approach to wealth creation. The dark truth that emerges from this first secret cuts deeper than most are prepared to acknowledge. Don't just make money. Control the flow of money. Once you control the flow, others become dependent on you. And dependence is the purest, most enduring form of power. This revelation isn't taught in business schools or financial seminars, but it's how real empires are built. Not through individual transactions or deals, but through systems that create permanent, invisible control. This mindset transformation represents a fundamental shift in how you perceive wealth creation. The hidden truth is that transactions make you money, but systems make you powerful. When you control the channels through which value moves, you've transcended the limitations that bind ordinary players in the financial game. This brings us to our second Machiavellian secret, one that works in perfect harmony with the first. Hide your moves in plain sight. The most dangerous people with money don't flash it. They deliberately hide it. They use shell companies, family trusts, and investments that appear boring and unremarkable on the surface. Why? Because true power operates most effectively when it's invisible to potential threats and enemies. This principle reaches back through centuries of human psychology. Machiavelli himself taught that rulers should appear simple, even somewhat weak, while secretly moving like wolves in the darkness. This duality, projecting one image while operating with another, creates an impenetrable shield around your growing empire. Look at today's billionaires, and you'll see this ancient wisdom perfectly executed. They buy vast tracts of farmland while publicly preaching about climate change. They fund cutting-edge tech startups while appearing semi-retired. They make their biggest and most strategic acquisitions through layers of holding companies that never bear their names. The masses never see the true power moves happening right before their eyes. The journey toward mastering this principle begins with a profound realization. Visibility creates vulnerability. When you showcase your wealth or broadcast your strategies, you instantly become a target. Tax authorities take notice. Competitors start plotting. The public develops expectations and demands. This is why the truly powerful cultivate a deliberate separation between their public persona and their private empire building. Behind the scenes, these masters of disguise are making decisive moves that consolidate control and expand their influence. But their brilliance lies in ensuring these maneuvers remain hidden in plain sight, often disguised as something boring, altruistic, or entirely different from their true purpose. This revelation forces us to reconsider the flashy entrepreneurs and celebrities who dominate our media landscape. Are they truly the most powerful players, or are they merely the most visible? The real titans of wealth and influence might be names you've rarely heard. People who've internalized Machiavelli's wisdom about the protective power of appearing ordinary while moving with extraordinary purpose. Now let's examine how this principle intersects with the critical third secret, a strategy that ensures your position remains unassailable even when challenged. If you've recognized these patterns operating in your own industry, write in the comments, "I see the wolves now," to show you've pierced the veil of financial illusion. The stark reality of this second secret becomes even clearer when we observe the contrasting fates of those who understand it versus those who don't. People who flaunt their wealth inevitably transform themselves into targets for lawsuits, for aggressive taxation, for public hatred and scrutiny. Their visibility becomes their greatest vulnerability, exposing them to forces eager to diminish or redistribute what they've built. Meanwhile, those who master the art of disguise become nearly untouchable, operating from the shadows with a freedom that flashy wealth displayers can never know. The less others know about where your money comes from and where it goes, the more secure your power becomes. This isn't about deception. It's about strategic obscurity that protects your journey and preserves your options. Behind every headline-grabbing billionaire who falls from grace, there's often the fatal error of drawing too much attention, of believing their own mythology. The true masters of wealth know that invisibility creates strength in a world eager to tear down the visibly successful. This mindset shift, from seeking recognition to prioritizing effectiveness, marks the dividing line between temporary success and lasting power. Subscribe now to unlock more Machiavellian secrets that transform ordinary money chasers into true power players. Don't miss our upcoming revelations on building unstoppable financial influence. This revelation leads us directly to our third Machiavellian money secret, one that builds an impenetrable human shield around your growing empire. Buy loyalty, not luxury. Many think money is primarily for acquiring cars, watches, mansions, and other symbols of success. But here's the profound truth that changes everything. Money is best spent on people. Machiavelli himself said a ruler is only as strong as the loyalty of those around him. That principle hasn't changed in 5 centuries because it's rooted in the unchanging nature of human psychology. The impact of this insight can't be overstated. It completely reorients how you allocate your resources and where you focus your attention. Look at how today's billionaires operate behind the scenes. They don't just buy companies, they buy loyalty. They pay lawyers who protect them from legal threats, lobbyists who change laws in their favor, and advisors who feed them opportunities before others even know they exist. They build networks of people whose futures become inextricably linked to their own success. This human infrastructure becomes their greatest asset, far more valuable than any physical possession. The decision to prioritize loyalty over luxury represents a complete paradigm shift. Luxury deprecates from the moment you acquire it. A new car loses value driving off the lot. A designer watch begins aging with the first wear. But loyalty, properly cultivated, appreciates over time. It compounds like the most powerful investment, creating returns that far exceed the initial outlay. This isn't taught in conventional financial education because it exists in the realm of human dynamics rather than spreadsheet calculations. Yet when you study history's greatest wealth creators, you'll find this pattern repeated consistently. They understood that people, the right people, properly incentivized, represent the ultimate force multiplier. Let me share a deeper perspective on how this loyalty-based approach creates an almost supernatural advantage in any competitive environment. If you've observed this pattern of people-first power in action, type "loyalty before luxury" in the comments to acknowledge this hidden truth. Consider this scenario. Two wealthy individuals, each with millions at their disposal. The first spends lavishly on gold chains, exotic sports cars and mansions, acquiring all the visible trappings of success. The second invests those same millions, building a network of loyal allies, advisors and supporters who feel personally invested in their success. When adversity strikes, as it inevitably does, whose wealth survives? The answer reveals itself with crystal clarity: the one who built loyalty. Luxury items depreciate instantly. That $300,000 sports car becomes worth $240,000 the moment you drive it off the lot. Designer clothes go out of fashion. Mansions require endless maintenance. But loyalty, properly cultivated and maintained, pays dividends forever. This revelation illuminates the profound wisdom in prioritizing relationship capital over material possessions. The transformation occurs when you realize that loyalty represents a renewable resource that appreciates over time, while luxury represents a depreciating liability that constantly demands more investment just to maintain its appearance. Now we approach our fourth Machiavellian secret. Perhaps the most uncomfortable truth in our journey, yet one of the most powerful: use fear as protection for your fortune. Here's the harsh reality few will openly acknowledge. People respect fear more than kindness. Money makes you attractive, but fear makes you untouchable. This observation isn't about cruelty. It's about understanding human psychology at its most fundamental level. Let me be absolutely clear. This isn't about threatening or harming others. It's about establishing clear boundaries that protect what you've built. It's about creating a reputation that makes others think twice before attempting to take what's yours. The masters of wealth understand that being universally liked often means being universally exploited. We can observe this principle operating throughout the business world. Look at major corporations. When workers fear losing their jobs, they push harder. When competitors fear being crushed, they back down or seek alliances. When governments fear your economic weight, they offer concessions rather than restrictions. This isn't malicious, it's mathematical. Fear creates predictable behavioral responses that can be leveraged systematically. Behind the scenes, the most successful wealth builders understand that fear operates as an invisible force field around their empire. While kindness might win you friends, it rarely deters those who would take advantage. This balance, maintaining respect while establishing clear consequences for crossing your boundaries, represents one of the most delicate aspects of power dynamics. The psychological impact of this principle extends beyond mere self-preservation. It creates a clarity in relationships that actually reduces conflict. When boundaries are ambiguous, they're constantly tested. When they're clear and enforced, they rarely need to be defended. This paradox, that establishing consequences actually reduces the need to implement them, reveals the sophisticated understanding of human nature that Machiavelli recognized centuries ago. Let's explore how this principle intersects with another dimension of power, one that ensures you're never trapped in a single vulnerable position. If you've noticed how clear boundaries protect wealth in your own experience, comment below with "boundaries before benevolence" to signal your recognition of this pattern. The true essence of using fear as protection becomes clear when we understand it's not about being cruel or intimidating. It's about establishing boundaries so firm that people hesitate to test them in the first place. It's about making the potential cost of crossing you so prohibitively high that few would even consider trying. This strategic positioning creates an invisible shield around your assets, more effective than any security system. Think of it as preventive medicine for your wealth. Fear operates as a deterrent, eliminating threats before they materialize. It's infinitely cheaper than fighting battles after. No, they've begun. It makes your empire safer without requiring you to lift a finger. This revelation transforms how you approach wealth protection from reactive defense to proactive deterrence. The Machiavellian insight here cuts straight to the heart of human nature. It's ultimately better to be feared for your money's power than loved for your generosity. Generosity without boundaries creates entitlement. Fear without cruelty creates respect. This balance, this counterintuitive truth, separates those who maintain their wealth from those who watch it slowly erode through 1,000 small incursions. This principle leads us directly to our fifth dark money secret, one that ensures your survival regardless of changing conditions. Diversify like a predator. Consider how apex predators maintain their dominance in nature. A lion doesn't hunt just one kind of prey. If zebras vanish, it pursues buffalo. If buffalo disappear, it hunts antelope. This adaptive flexibility guarantees survival. Regardless of environmental shifts, the wealthy play this same strategic game with their money, creating an ecosystem of income rather than a single stream. This mindset shift, from seeking the best investment to building a network of different investments, fundamentally alters your journey toward financial resilience. Behind the scenes, this diversity creates a form of financial immunity that withstands almost any economic disease. What's most revealing is contrasting this approach with how most people handle their finances. The average person depends entirely on one income source, their job. They cling to one paycheck, one employer, one career path, and when that single lifeline is cut, their entire financial existence collapses. This singular dependency represents perhaps the greatest vulnerability in most people's lives. The wealthy never allow themselves to be trapped in this precarious position. They systematically spread their investments across land, stocks, businesses, bonds, startups, even art and collectibles. If one stream dries up due to market shifts or unexpected disruption, the others continue flowing. This isn't just financial planning, it's financial independence in its truest form. True power emerges from options, from never being cornered, from always having multiple paths forward when others face dead ends. This strategic flexibility creates a decision-making freedom that most people never experience, while others remain paralyzed by the fear of losing their sole income source. The diversified wealth builder can act boldly, knowing their survival doesn't depend on any single outcome. Let's explore how this predatory diversification interacts with another critical element of wealth building, one that few have the discipline to master, but that magnifies everything we've discussed so far. If you've begun creating multiple income streams in your own life, type predator mindset in the comments to signal your commitment to this approach. Machiavelli, in his penetrating wisdom, would likely observe our modern financial landscape and advise, never let your fortune rest on one coin toss. Build a web so wide that no storm can destroy it all. This insight transcends mere financial security. It's about achieving a form of immunity to the pressures and threats that control ordinary people. The profound revelation here is that true freedom emerges when you can't be starved out, when losing any single income source doesn't threaten your existence. You can't be controlled through financial intimidation. This resilience creates a psychological transformation that ripples through every aspect of your life. Decisions that would terrify others, leaving a toxic job, standing up to powerful interests, refusing compromising offers, become possible when your survival doesn't depend on any single relationship or revenue stream. Behind the scenes, this independence becomes the foundation for authentic power, the ability to act based on your true assessment rather than fear. Now let's unveil our sixth Machiavellian money secret, perhaps the most counterintuitive yet potent principle in our entire journey. Patience is a weapon. The average person desperately wants quick money. That's precisely why they fall for scams, gamble away savings, or chase endless get-rich-quick schemes that promise overnight wealth. But the truly powerful? They wait. They understand that patience represents one of the most underrated money weapons in existence, and remarkably few possess the discipline to wield it effectively. This principle operates like a hidden filter, separating those who will achieve lasting wealth from those who will merely chase it forever. The mindset shift required here challenges everything about our instant gratification culture. While others demand immediate returns, the masters of wealth calmly plant seeds they know won't bear fruit for years or even decades. The evidence surrounds us if we know where to look. Land purchased decades ago in then undesirable areas now commands millions. Stocks in once small companies, patiently held through market fluctuations, have grown into empires. Businesses that grew slowly and methodically have outlasted and outperformed their flashier, faster-growing competitors. These outcomes aren't accidents or lucky breaks. They're the deliberate result of strategic patience, of understanding that genuine power isn't built in days or months, but in years and decades. Consider the journey of the most significant wealth creators in history. Almost without exception, their greatest gains came not from quick maneuvers, but from positions they established early and held with unwavering conviction, while others constantly jumped between opportunities. This revelation forces us to reconsider our relationship with time itself, to see it not as an enemy rushing us toward decisions, but as an ally that compounds our advantages if we let it. The impact of this principle becomes even more profound when we examine how patience intersects with opportunity. Those with the discipline to wait often find they can acquire assets at fractions of their true value during downturns when the impatient are desperately selling. They can enter markets when they're unfashionable and hold until recognition creates explosive growth. They can allow their competitive advantages to compound beyond what any short-term strategy could achieve. Let's explore how this weapon of patience connects with our final Machiavellian secret, one that creates perhaps the most powerful position of all in the realm of money and influence. If patience has been your hidden strength in building wealth, share it by commenting, "Time is my weapon," below. Machiavelli recognized something profound about power that applies perfectly to wealth building. Time itself is one of the greatest weapons at your disposal. The one who can wait out everyone else ultimately wins. This patience creates a dangerous advantage because while others are swept up in emotional waves of market euphoria or panic, you remain centered and clear-headed. This psychological transformation manifests most dramatically during market downturns. While the masses panic sell at the bottom, locking in their losses through fear-driven decisions, the patient wealth builder sees opportunity. While they sell cheap, you buy cheap. While they abandon positions with massive future potential, you accumulate them at discount prices. While they quit right before the turning point, you stay and reap the inevitable recovery. The hidden truth is that this time-based advantage compounds with every market cycle. Each time you maintain composure while others lose theirs, your relative position strengthens. Your assets grow not just through appreciation, but through the continuous transfer of wealth from the impatient to the patient. Behind the scenes, the greatest fortunes in history have been built during periods when most were too terrified to act. This brings us to our seventh and perhaps most powerful Machiavellian money secret: create dependence. Make others dependent on you. This principle operates on a profound understanding of human relationships. Dependence is silent slavery. The one who needs always bows to the one who provides. This dynamic creates an invisible power imbalance that transcends formal authority. Look at how major institutions already implement this strategy. Banks do this with debt, creating lifelong payment obligations that keep borrowers tied to the system. Governments do this with aid programs that recipients come to rely on for survival. Employers do this with salaries and benefits that make workers fear losing their position. In each case, they create dependence so powerful that people cannot escape without suffering significant consequences. The revelation here isn't just recognizing this pattern. It's understanding how to ethically position yourself on the right side of the dependence equation. If you want true financial power, don't just make money. Create systems where others genuinely need what you provide. Build businesses that solve essential problems. Develop skills that remain in constant demand. Acquire assets that produce what people cannot live without. When people can't function effectively without your resources or capabilities, something remarkable happens. They'll protect your interests, defend your position, and work for your success. Not because you force them to, but because their own well-being has become intertwined with yours. This alignment of incentives creates an extraordinary stability that mere contractual relationships can never achieve. This journey toward creating beneficial interdependence represents perhaps the highest evolution of Machiavellian thinking applied to modern wealth building. It's not about exploitation. It's about becoming genuinely indispensable through the value you create. The mindset shift from simply making money to creating systems of mutual benefit transforms not just your financial reality, but your entire relationship with power. Let's examine how these 7 principles interconnect to create an unbreakable financial fortress, a position of strength that few will ever achieve, but that remains available to those who understand these hidden dynamics. If you recognize how creating value that others depend on has built your own success, comment "indispensable by design" below. Machiavelli, in his ruthless clarity, would likely whisper one of his most profound insights: it's not enough to be rich. Make others poor without you. That's how chains are built. This revelation cuts to the core of why true power isn't just about accumulating wealth, but about strategically positioning that wealth as essential to others' survival. Not through charity or generosity, but through calculated necessity. This principle operates on a deeper level than most financial strategies. It's not about literal impoverishment, but rather creating a reality where your resources, skills, or systems become so integrated into others' lives that their removal would create genuine hardship. The psychological impact of this position transforms how others relate to you, from optional to essential, from luxury to necessity. Behind the scenes, this is how empires maintain their position. They don't just build wealth, they build dependency. They create ecosystems where their continued success becomes inseparable from the success of those around them. This alignment creates a form of soft power far more effective than any explicit authority. At this point in our journey, we've unveiled 7 dark secrets that form the Machiavellian approach to money and power: controlling the flow, hiding in plain sight, buying loyalty instead of luxury, using fear as protection, diversifying like a predator, wielding patience as a weapon, and creating systems of dependence. Each principle alone represents a powerful tool, Together, they form an unstoppable arsenal that few will ever fully comprehend, let alone master. What makes these principles so devastating in their effectiveness? The answer lies not in economics, but in psychology. Humans are remarkably predictable when it comes to money and the behaviors it triggers. They instinctively chase comfort and security, which makes them surprisingly easy to guide into predetermined paths. They fear loss far more intensely than they desire gain, which makes fear an extraordinarily powerful motivator for compliance. They crave safety in an uncertain world, which makes them willingly depend on whoever appears to provide it. This understanding of human nature represents the master key that unlocks all 7 principles. The wealthy don't just use money, they leverage human psychology itself. They recognize that money isn't fundamentally about numbers, assets, or currencies. It's about perception, emotion, and behavior. Control how people think about money, and you control their relationship to you and your resources. The transformation occurs when you shift from being manipulated by these psychological forces to understanding and ethically working with them. This awakening, this recognition of the hidden architecture beneath financial interactions, changes everything about how you build and protect wealth. Now I want to explore how these principles manifest in real-world scenarios, how the theoretical becomes practical in ways that reshape entire industries and fortunes. If these psychological insights about money have sparked a recognition of patterns you've observed but perhaps never named, comment, "Psychology drives wealth," to acknowledge this deeper dimension of financial reality. The most masterful players in this game understand something that goes beyond mere financial strategy. They recognize that the wealthy don't just use money, they skillfully leverage human weakness. This revelation transforms our entire perspective on wealth creation. Money at its core isn't really about numbers, assets, or economic theories. It's fundamentally about psychology. When you control how people think about money, you control them. This represents the metagame operating behind all 7 secrets we've uncovered. The manipulation not just of wealth, but of perception itself. Consider how this plays out in everyday financial interactions. Credit card companies don't just offer convenience, they exploit our psychological desire for immediate gratification. Investment firms don't just manage assets, they capitalize on our fear of missing out. Social media platforms don't just connect people, they monetize our deep-seated need for validation and belonging. Behind the scenes, each of these business models is built on a sophisticated understanding of human psychological vulnerabilities. The uncomfortable truth that emerges from this journey is that most people remain completely unaware of these dynamics. They continue to play fair in a game that was never designed to be fair in the first place. They believe the narrative that financial success is primarily about luck, hard work, or disciplined saving, all while ignoring the power moves happening in plain sight around them. The consequences of this blindness are predictable and profound. Most people become pawns in someone else's strategy. They work diligently for companies that see them merely as numbers on a spreadsheet. They borrow from banking institutions that systematically drain them through carefully calculated interest and fees. They remain trapped in systems meticulously designed by others to extract maximum value while providing minimum reward. This insight reveals the true battlefield isn't economic, it's psychological. The most powerful players aren't necessarily the most intelligent or hard-working. They're simply the ones who understand the real rules governing the game everyone else is unwittingly playing. Their advantage comes not from breaking rules, but from seeing the hidden rulebook that most never realize exists. Machiavelli, with his unflinching clarity about human nature, would likely offer this stark warning: those who ignore power get ruled by it. The same principle applies directly to money. If you don't learn and apply these dark secrets, you'll always live inside someone else's system, operating according to rules specifically designed to keep you weak and dependent while strengthening those who created them. Map is now clear. The tools are sharp and available. The architecture of financial power has been exposed. But the fundamental question remains unanswered. Will you use this knowledge? Will you transition from being manipulated by these forces to understanding and ethically leveraging them? This represents the ultimate crossroads in your financial journey, the decisive moment where you choose whether to remain a pawn or become a player. The transformation begins with awareness, but it culminates in action. Understanding these principles intellectually creates potential. Implementing them practically creates power. If you've recognized patterns in your own financial life where these dynamics have affected you, whether positively or negatively, drop "I see the game now" in the comments to acknowledge this awakening. The people who truly grasp and implement these Machiavellian principles experience a profound paradigm shift. They begin to see financial interactions through an entirely different lens. Every paycheck, every business deal, every investment decision suddenly appears as part of a much larger strategic game. A game where you don't just chase money like everyone else. You actively control it. You bend its flow. You transform it into genuine power. And power, once acquired, is almost never surrendered voluntarily. This awakening, this fundamental shift in perception, changes everything about how you operate in the financial world. You stop seeing yourself as just another player following predetermined rules and begin recognizing yourself as a potential architect of those rules. The revelation transforms not just your financial outcomes, but your entire relationship with the concept of wealth itself. Consider how these principles manifest in our banking system, perhaps the most perfect example of Machiavellian money principles operating in plain sight. Banks don't just hold your money as a service, they effectively own your financial future. While you sleep, they lend your hard-earned savings to others at substantial interest. The borrower purchases a house, faithfully pays back the loan with interest over decades, and the bank pockets the majority of that profit. They systematically make money from your money while returning mere crumbs in the form of negligible interest rates. The crucial question emerges: who truly controls this arrangement? Not you. The bank. They've built the pipes. They control the flow. They've created dependence on both sides, from depositors who need somewhere to store money and borrowers who need capital to acquire assets. This double-sided control represents Machiavellian genius in institutional form. Behind the flashy headlines about tech billionaires and their latest ventures, the truly powerful are quietly accumulating something far more fundamental: farmland. While it appears boring and old-fashioned on the surface, those with deep understanding recognize that food represents the most fundamental form of power. If you control the land, you control the harvest. If you control the harvest, you control the people who need to eat. This isn't just investment, it's strategic positioning that hides in plain sight. This hidden pursuit of essential resources reveals the profound wisdom in these principles. While the masses chase whatever makes headlines, the truly powerful acquire what humans can't live without. The journey toward understanding this subtle difference between what appears valuable and what truly is valuable marks a decisive turning point in financial enlightenment. The decision to move beyond conventional thinking about money requires a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about how wealth actually operates. It demands the courage to see systems for what they are rather than what we're told they are. If you've begun noticing these control systems operating in your daily financial life, type "I see the controllers now" in the comments to acknowledge this critical awakening. Let's examine a revealing contrast that perfectly illustrates our third principle in action. Compare two wealthy individuals with identical resources. The first spends millions on visible luxury. Exotic cars, designer clothing, lavish homes that everyone can see and envy. The second appears far more modest, but invests those same millions building an invisible empire, a carefully cultivated network of lawyers, advisors, political connections, and loyal operators who advance their interests from the shadows. When inevitable challenges arise, market downturns, legal threats, competitive attacks, the first person stands essentially alone, surrounded by depreciating assets that offer no protection. Meanwhile, the second activates an invisible army that fights tirelessly on their behalf. That's the profound power of buying loyalty over luxury, of understanding that relationships represent appreciating assets, while material possessions almost always depreciate. This strategic decision to invest in influence rather than appearances creates a fortress of protection that no amount of visible wealth can match. The transformation occurs when you realize that true power rarely announces itself. It operates quietly through channels of influence that most never see or understand. Now let's observe how our fourth principle, using fear as protection, manifests in corporate environments. Major corporations demonstrate this power dynamic daily, often without explicitly acknowledging it. Employees frequently work harder not from genuine inspiration or passion, but from the carefully maintained fear of replacement. Competitors frequently back down, not from respect for innovation, but from fear of being financially crushed. Suppliers often accept unfavorable terms, not from seeing mutual benefit, but from fear of losing crucial business. This strategic deployment of fear isn't necessarily about cruelty. It's about leverage, about understanding that certain emotional drivers create highly predictable behavioral responses that serve the interests of those in power. Behind the scenes, organizations systematically create environments where boundaries are clear and the consequences of crossing them remain apparent to all. This calculated approach generates compliance without requiring constant enforcement. The journey toward mastering our sixth principle, patience as a weapon, finds perhaps its clearest illustration in real estate wealth. Consider those who purchase property in developing urban areas or emerging markets decades ago. At the time, they were often ridiculed for wasting money on undesirable locations with uncertain futures. Their friends bought luxury cars and took exotic vacations while they quietly accumulated what appeared to be worthless land. Today, those same worthless properties command millions in market value, generating passive income every month that exceeds what most earn in a year. The patient investors who weathered years of criticism now collect rewards that their impatient critics will never see. This mindset, this willingness to plant seeds that might not bear fruit for decades, represents one of the most powerful yet underutilized approaches to building genuine wealth. What's fascinating is how these principles interconnect and reinforce each other. The patient investor who controls essential resources can create systems of dependence that generate influence, which can then be protected through strategic boundaries. If you've experienced the power of delayed gratification in your own financial journey, type "patience paid off" in the comments to share your experience with this powerful principle. The principle of creating dependency systems surrounds us in everyday life, often hiding in plain sight within our most routine transactions. Take a moment to examine your monthly bills, phone service, internet connection, streaming platforms, software subscriptions, and digital services. Notice how religiously you pay these expenses, regardless of economic conditions or personal circumstances. Have you ever questioned why these payments take priority even when finances get tight? The revelation lies in the psychological transformation these companies have engineered. They don't merely sell services, they systematically create addiction and dependency. The journey from consumer to dependent happens so gradually, most never notice the transition. These businesses have masterfully implemented our seventh principle by making themselves essential to your daily existence. Without them, you feel disconnected, isolated, even anxious, cut off from information, entertainment, and social connection. This golden chain of dependence represents Machiavellian strategy perfected for the digital age. The decision to position a service not as a luxury, but as a necessity, creates an unbreakable bond between provider and customer. Behind the scenes, entire business models are built around this principle: recurring revenue, subscription economics, platform ecosystems, all designed to create customers who can never comfortably leave. What's most fascinating is how willingly we accept these chains. We sign multi-year contracts, store our most valuable data in proprietary formats, build digital identities on platforms we don't control, all creating switching costs so high that leaving becomes nearly unthinkable. This isn't accidental, it's architectural. The mindset behind these systems understands that temporary customers generate limited value, while dependent customers represent perpetual profit. Now let's confront the ultimate question these 7 dark money secrets leave us with. A choice that defines your entire financial destiny. You can continue treating money like everyone else does, just as a paycheck to earn, just as bills to pay, just as a necessary evil to be managed. Or you can see it for what it truly is: a weapon, a shield, a tool that opens certain doors and closes others, a means of control rather than merely a medium of exchange. The hidden truth is that those who ignore or reject these lessons remain pawns on a financial chessboard designed by others. They follow rules created specifically to benefit those who wrote them. They work within systems engineered to extract maximum value from their time and energy while returning minimum reward. They experience confusion when facing financial roadblocks that seem random but are actually by design. Conversely, those who internalize these principles begin moving differently through the financial world. They recognize patterns invisible to others. They make decisions that seem counterintuitive to conventional thinkers, but produce extraordinary results over time. They position themselves on the right side of dependency, on the controlling side of money flow, on the patient side of market cycles. The fundamental question that defines your financial journey isn't about specific investments or strategies. It's about your relationship to these 7 principles. Are you willing to see the game for what it is? If these revelations have shifted your perspective on money and power, type "I choose to be a player" in the comments to mark this pivotal moment of financial awakening. As we come to the end of this journey through Machiavelli's dark money principles, I'm struck by something profound. Knowledge without action is merely philosophy. And these 7 secrets weren't meant to be intellectual curiosities. They were meant to be weapons in your arsenal, tools for your empire building, shields for your wealth protection. The difference between those who merely survive financially and those who truly thrive isn't intelligence, luck, or even starting capital. It's the willingness to see the game for what it actually is, rather than what we're told it is. It's the courage to play by the real rules, rather than the manufactured ones designed to keep most people running in place. I've shared these insights because I believe in the transformation they can create, not just in your financial reality, but in your entire relationship with power, influence, and control. These aren't just strategies for building wealth, they're frameworks for understanding how the world actually operates beneath its surface. If you found value in this perspective, if something here resonated with you on a deeper level, I'd love for you to join our community of strategic thinkers. Subscribe to this channel where we regularly unveil the hidden dynamics that most financial advisors will never discuss. This isn't mainstream financial advice. It's the shadow knowledge that creates extraordinary results for those who understand and apply it. The journey of implementation begins with recognition. If these principles have shifted your perspective, if you're now seeing financial interactions differently than you did before, drop a comment saying, "I've seen behind the curtain," to mark this moment of awakening. That simple act solidifies your commitment to playing at a higher level. If you found this exploration valuable, take a moment to leave a like. It's not just about supporting this channel, it's about signaling to yourself that you're committed to understanding the deeper game. Every like represents another person awakening to these hidden truths. The principles we've explored today interconnect with other domains of power and influence. There's a video right here that examines how these same Machiavellian insights apply to career advancement and professional dominance. Click and continue with me there to expand your understanding beyond just money into the realm of professional power. Remember, in a world where most remain financial pawns, you now have the map to become a player. The only question that remains is what you'll do with this knowledge. Will you continue operating under the old rules, or will you begin the transformation into someone who truly understands how the game is played? The choice, as Machiavelli himself would say, is entirely yours.